right there. It seems as though I can't find my shirts. It's a memory thing, you know. I think I found them here. Grab me a snack that I made.
have entered the cave. Alright, let me get my Indiana Jones hat on. We're gonna talk some alien. I want to try my cake right now. Yeah, I overcooked it a little bit, but they didn't have no ice cream in the store. I'm probably gonna go through all that ice cream tonight. Alright, you know what I'm gonna do? Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna stop this music altogether. That way I don't have to put on my headset, whatever, right? I'm going to bring up my video, my illustrious face here, which is in the dark, which is fine with me. So, this morning, I had revelations on how to continue my project. So the problem was with the two mirrors up top. I didn't know how I was going to place them. So now I know how to do that, more or less. I'm really thirsty. Yes. So anyway, let me make sure that my stream is set up correctly here. So update, yeah. So I'm working on the not really enclosures. I'm working on I don't know how I'm gonna say it. I don't want to say case. So I'm working on the mirrors. Like, how the hell do I say it? It's like the enclosure for the mirrors. So the mirrors, the beam splitter. When I say enclosures, how exactly I'm containing the mirrors and stuff. Cake's pretty good. It's fluffy, even though it flattened out on me. Fuck. Man, I'm telling you, I should have had a cow farm. With the milk I go through and ice cream and crap. I just think if I had a cow farm, I wouldn't have to go to the store. I could just get all my dairy crap right here. All I eat is dairy. And butter, biscuits, and bread. And Oreo. You have to bear with me while I chow down on this stuff. You can't really see me eat the food that much, you know? It's not like I'm streaming in HD like all these other professional people. So I guess me eating food on stream, it's not a big deal, you know? Also, I'm open to questions. Okay, I don't do this very often. You could ask me any question that you want while I'm talking about my setup. So, I sort of have names for the different parts of my setup. Um, and I really should try to give them names, you know? I'll be burping pretty soon. So there's still some things about the interferometer that I don't know. Some things that I am not sure of. I have no idea. Um, I'm just going by what I see. Going by what I know. Cheerio. What I know about the interferometer. So, honestly, we should look something up. We should look up what is the interferometer good for anyway? Just trying to detect gravity? Because you can't do that. I mean, maybe them people at LIGO or something, you know? Let's see here. We're going to do a few things behind the scenes here. Normally I put the web page up. But I'm not going to because I'm doing some FaceTime tonight. Because I fell asleep again. What is an interferometer used for? We know what it does, right? But let's see what smart-ass AI comes up with this answer. Interferometers are used to make precise measurements. Okay, like using a laser to make distances, measure distances. Okay, yeah, I remember now. You can use an interferometer to check specks on a mirror, on a lens. So, when you get nice fringes and you don't get these little distortions in the fringes, that means the mirrors and the lenses are good. They have applications in various fields. Applications, astronomy, measure distances, star analyze light. Well, not really. Quantum mechanics helps in experiments that test the fundamental principles from physics. Bullshit. Seismology detects ground movements and vibrations. Ah, seismology. Well, I beg to differ there too. There's a setup where you have a spring, but springs. As a matter of fact, lasers. When you set up a measurement system with a laser, it can detect differences of nanometers. But if you're looking now, earthquakes and seismographs operate on a vibrational type setting. So the ground would have to be fairly quiet, like you'd have to know if trucks are going by or whatever. you'd have to recognize what that is. That's an interesting thought because if this is crazy. What the heck is going on? Another idea just popped into my head about my setup, and here we are just asking this basic question. Now all of a sudden I have an idea about something, which is even part of the stream. So we have a test beam that goes down to mirror number 1. No, that's the calibration beam. So if the calibration beam has something on it that's not supposed to be there, it could be attributed to vibration, right? So that vibration could be taken out if we knew exactly what was coming out of mirror number 1. We could add a source. We could add a light source from mirror number 1, and whatever vibration comes in, we can add that to a comparator circuit. We can cancel out that vibration, and we can send that test signal on into the rest of the circuit. Oh my God in heaven! Now, 9 times out of 10, you wouldn't notice these vibrations, but I'm going to be working on a scale that's a very low level. That's just crazy. Let me go to my my pictures, and let me look for. It's so damn bright here. Well, let's just do this because it's a little bit less brighter. Now I need to go to paint. It's systems. It's a system setup. That's what I want to look for. I don't even know if maybe the system. Wait, maybe the system is in the other. No, this is a system. This is one of the system setups. You've got the whetstone bridge. You've got transimpedance amplifier. You've got amplifiers. You've got possible comparator circuit to eliminate carrier wave circuits. You've got a mixer circuit. You've got lenses and filters. Let's do this. Let's see here. So I know what I'm thinking. Alright, so file, new. And we're going to do this system setup again. I think I'm going to sneeze big time. I'm going to have to go get another drink. Where the hell's my OBS? Alright, so we're going to take OBS over here, which is not really what I wanted to do. And we're going to drop Mr. Pyramid Dude. And then I'm going to bring up paint. Like so. I could make it a little smaller probably, so I can squeeze my lovely picture in there. I'll be right back. I'm going to get a drink. Okay. Um, so we've got a system, and we've got. Let's say that we've got light coming in, and we'll just use yellow. We'll use yellow. Oops, maybe not. Let's see here, yellow. And we use this here, and we go with the circle. We'll put it up towards the top. Now, everything in the system is not inclusive. So, actually, you know what? Let's take this. Wait, you know what? Even better. Let me just do it again. No, I don't want to save that. Okay, and then let's go back to the circle again. And let's do here. So, I'm thinking of individual typical like shot noise filtering. And hopefully I don't get other crap jumping into my head, giving me all kinds of ideas again. Over on the left, over on the right, we got something that's supposed to be there. Let's go with a line. Um, so, I might as well put this wall in too, huh? So where the light comes in, there's actually two areas. The part on the left is where the interferometer is. This is a mirror over there. I used green before. Let's use green. Wait. So I've got an interferometer that's kind of sitting over here, like so. Now my interferometers are actually going to be looking like plates. The light coming in is going to be, let's see, back over here. Alright, so wait, let me think about this. So the light comes down from the top. And what I'll do is I'll just make a yellow line like this here. And this line, this mirror down at the bottom, this is M1, and the test mirror goes off the page to the left. Now, if I was to take the brown color, let's see if I can do this here. Let's say that, well, no, this is another problem because each component in the circuit is on a different type of. It's on a similar suspension system of springs, but they're on different systems. So we can't use the mirror. But the laser, if the laser detects changes in vibration, right? Let me think for a minute. has to be a wave that's vibration is going to be from top to bottom, so it's going to be up and down like this. Any lateral vibration, it's going to be negligible, I think. I don't have. I have a beam that goes from the top down the side to the translational view, but that goes down to a mirror. Oh, something's wrong with that setup too. Oh, wait a minute. Oh shit, that's going to be a problem too, because I envisioned the translational signal to be coming from the top, going straight down through a beam splitter to a mirror, back up to the beam splitter, across and through the translational wave, so it interferes with it laterally, goes into a camera, goes through a beam splitter. The one wave goes to the camera, the other wave goes down to another mirror, comes back up to the beam splitter, goes back to the source beam splitter, is polarized such, or maybe it's polarized such that it doesn't go back up to the source, gets reflected by that beam splitter, goes back down to that mirror, back up to that mirror, and back over to the beam splitter. So this translational thing is going back and forth. It's cycling back and forth, which is a good thing, because that's that's a low-level signal, and by having it go back and forth, it's going to add constructive or destructive interference to a translational wave. So the other wave goes to the camera to measure the changes. And once, wait, that second mirror on the bottom was supposed to be changed to a noise measuring setup. Those two mirrors were supposed to be used for tuning, and now I'm thinking they should be kept in place. But the problem, I envisioned the light source to come from the top. Well, the light source is not coming from the top now. It's coming down at a 45-degree angle, hitting. It has to hit a beam splitter at a 45-degree angle. Let's use this gray color, this light blue color, as the translational wave coming down from the top beam splitter. So this is going to be a separate section down at the bottom here. Let's draw a divider of some sort here. God, I don't have room for a divider. So if it comes down, let's say that the mirror hits the beam splitter. It goes that way. It's supposed to come. That's that second beam splitter on the top is down the road. It gets reflected back and down, so that means that it's pointed in this direction. So the translational beam splitter is going to be looking like this. Now I'll have to draw a three-dimensional view of the beam splitter. You can see how the beam splitter angle is when you do it in 3D. Okay, so this is going to represent a translational source beam. So it's going to be, maybe it's going to be this color. And the source beam is going to come towards me. Let's do this here. Let's do this here. We'll put in let's do this here. So this is supposed to be in the middle, but it's actually kind of like down here. And then we draw a line. Another line. And then we draw this color and a lighter line. And we point that line through here. Now that line is not pointing down, it's pointing towards the page. Maybe I should have made it a little shorter. However, because of the way the beam splitter is pointed, this is a 45-degree angle. This is a beam splitter, so that translational, the control beam is going to be going it's going to be going over here. It's going to continue down. This beam splitter is the one at the bottom. If I do another one and just kind of point it up here, let's say this is a little bit exaggerated, okay, and that's not even the right color, but let's use this color here again. And then, so we've got this, it's a little bit messed up, but you get the idea. Okay, so this light is coming from the source, and it's also pointed at 45 degrees, but I'm not showing, it's pointed at 45 degrees, it's rotated at 45 degrees, it's a really skewy type of a setup. Because I didn't realize that my mirrors were actually going to be on top of the tuning cavity instead of off to the side. And the reason for that is very obvious. Unless if I reconfigured it to have those mirrors on the side, then I could run the secondary beam splitter from the top down and across, and then the secondary mirror is down at the bottom where I thought it was going to be. But now it's skewed at 45 degrees, and there's no way, like, if I don't know how I would get this 45 degrees is relative to the it's 45 degrees to the ground. so I don't know. You have to keep 45-degree angle to get the greatest amount of reflectivity. Or actually, it's not 45 degree, it's like the face to face angle, whatever the hell it is. And I screwed that up too because now my light source is coming from a different direction, and in order for it to be coming from the direction that I need to have it to come from, I've got to turn the mirror that goes down to the beam splitter in the opposite direction, which I don't think it's going to be a problem. Who knows? I don't think it's a problem. Anyway, I'm thinking in my head, I wonder if I can move the mirror and beam splitter setup. No, wait. Okay, so what if? What I'm thinking about something again here. Let me go here and here and here and what? Okay, so if the beam splitter, no, what would happen is the beam splitter would be at 90 degrees off axis if I put my mirror setup at 90 degrees. That would require rotating the slit, and oh my god. I want the. So here's another question. How do you know the orientation of the electric and magnetic fields of the light beam? You can't just assume that electric is up and magnetic is across. That's just ridiculous. We're assuming these things coming out of a laser, and I'm just using colored spectrum, Oh my god. Okay, my clock is correct. No, it's not. I need to watch my time because I really need to get some sleep tonight. It would be nice so I can get up in the morning, which I have to get up in the morning. I've had a bit of a long day. I did get some things done, but I didn't get things done that I wanted to get done. I got things done that I had to get done. Yeah, that's how that story went. And I gotta do more things tomorrow that I have to get done. So if I set the mirror off to the side and bring it over, the only way to do that is to rotate the beam splitter 90 degrees. And then I'd have to move all of the it's possible to do it because the setup that I'm going to use for the primary source mirrors at the top are going to be suspended by springs, or there's going to be a track. They're going to be on a floating track, and I don't know how I'm going to make the adjustments on this floating track yet. But I'm going to have 2 layers of suspension for those mirrors. So this is the only problem, is because you want to use the source light beam, and right now the source light beam comes in from the center. It comes down from the center. It hits 2 mirrors. It hits 1 mirror way down the road. Wait. Let me think. Can I do? It has to come off. Well, the mirror. There's 2 mirrors, and then there's the beam splitter, which is at the bottom, but it has to be this way, okay? So the light comes in here, hits this mirror, and then goes over and hits this mirror, and then goes down to the beam splitter. The beam splitter is oriented in this direction, which is just the opposite. Now, I did some tests yesterday, and I verified that it inverted the signal, which is fine. It's no big deal. You can invert the signal as long as you know, it actually comes in inverted, and then when it gets to the beam splitter, it's at its normal reading. However, if I shifted all the mirrors over here, and then have a mirror, like it would have to be like shifted, it'd have to be rotated 45 degrees and it's skewed and everything else. It's not worth it. It's not worth the trouble. It needs to be up, down, and the only problem is giving me this translational thing. If there was a way, so I've got a beam splitter here, I've got a mirror going down. I've got, these are, the only mirror that I've got going straight is the mirror that's at the bottom. And that mirror at the bottom gets reflected back and goes and hits the beam splitter and goes out the door. If I so the first beam split wait just a minute. There's another problem here. There's another problem. I'm not thinking about this correctly. That mirror on the left down at the bottom, that's technically inside of the that's messed up because that's technically inside the tuning cavity. Why am I thinking these are the primary source mirrors. These are the primary source mirrors. And the primary source mirrors are at the top. So there's another beam splitter. No, wait. So there would have had to have been another beam splitter at one end. But so this is the way I've got them shaped now. If I used, I can't use this because it goes down to the tuning cavity is going to be in the way. The second one, what goes down to the beam splitter, the only option would be to take the second one, change that from a mirror to a beam splitter. So now you've got the second one here as a beam splitter, but this beam splitter is right on the wall. It's right there where that green thing is. So if that implies, okay, maybe there's something I can do here. There's something I can do here. But and I don't think the distance matters now. The only distance thing that matters is between the two mirrors and the interferometer. That tunes the circuit. That's the tuned circuit. We don't need a tuned circuit in order to measure a vibrational response on the floor. So that's what we need to do. So let's grab a line. And so what we'll do is we'll make another line, say it's like right here. And we'll say this is the floor. And I might do some other, I'm going to do some other system stuff in here that may not necessarily be in there. So that would imply another beam splitter. But if I keep putting these beam splitters in here, I'm going to lose power. you lose 50% power going through a beam splitter. So without, of course, the tuning cavity adds power. So I lose 50% coming out of there. So now I'm thinking of a different idea. This thing at the bottom, I'm coming up with a different. I'm just going to set that kind of aside here. Let me just let's see here. Let's do this. Let's grab this here, and what we'll do is we'll just kind of move this over here. And what I'm going to do is I need to save this. We'll save this as LW lateral detection and no, and vibration setup. So if we took another beam splitter and put it if we put it here, no, wait just a minute now. That's set up wrong. The beam splitter has to be pointed in this direction here. So that what's going to happen, we're going to use a different colored line. This is the light source on the left. We're going to use a different colored line to represent what's called the control line. Okay. So the control line bounces off and it goes on to the detection circuits at the end over here. We'll just put a line here. There's filters, there's polarizers, there's stuff. But if I put a beam splitter here and take that signal, and then let's grab, we'll do the do. What we're gonna do is we're gonna have a special mirror down here. We'll color this. Well, it's got to be red because it represents mirrors that are part of the bottom of the circuit. It's not like that. But now let's grab this one here. And then, so now we've got a reflected signal that goes down. Now, this reflected signal is going to interfere with we could polarize this. We could polarize this to prevent it from going back up into the signal. I don't know how I know that. Honestly, I don't know how I know that. No, I've got a better idea. It doesn't matter that this mirror on the bottom has to be flat, does it? We can take this mirror we can do this here. These are like they're stands for the mirror, okay, that are connected to the floor. That really isn't 45 degrees, as it should be more like this. This will prevent it from going back into the source. And so what we can do um, let's do this here. I'm trying to think. We've got light. Let's do this here. And so this is going to be a combined oh shit, is that the right color? No, it's not, I don't think. It should be the color of the box. And then then we'll use this color. Let's see, this would be red here. This would be a line here. And this goes into here. And then we're going to have another circuit. We can probably color it this color here. Maybe we use this one. No, let's use this one here. And we use this one again. Actually, that should have been a square box, I think. Now see, that signal coming through there is the combined carrier plus the noise. It has them both. I'm kind of throwing this together because I'm wanting to visualize something. Just like beam splitters up the frickin' yang here. What the hell? You gotta use beam splitters because you gotta use... how do I separate the control signal? You've got two signals coming through here. You could polarize it. That's the whole shooting match. If it goes down there and hits that, that's um, it kind of what's the word I'm trying to think of? It kind of negates the fact of all the springs and stuff that you used on your mirrors, and now you're just going back down and you're adding the signal and you're adding the whole floor back into the signal because you want to delete that noise. Now that noise could be getting into the spring systems. It might be a very small amount, but if you send the signal down to the bottom, that's the total of all of the mirrors and the beam splitters is coming down at the bottom. And it goes down and it hits that mirror. It goes through the combined light and noise detector. And what it's supposed to do I think it's right. So if I do a box like this, actually it's a box like this. I'm gonna do this color here, and then make a box here. And what we do, this is actually. I should have did that box different. It doesn't matter. And so right up here. Oh, Jesus, I don't want to put that there. This is going to be noise, comparator, circuit. Now you'd think this would be redundant, right? You've got the light and noise detector, And then you've got, yeah, you'd think it'd be redundant, but what it does, it takes a larger form of mechanical vibrational noise and adds it back into the signal. But what it does is it adds it back into the signal on the negative side. Now, if that signal is going to be larger, it's going to have a DC offset. So, wait, no, is it going to be? It's going to have if it's a larger signal, it's going to have a DC offset. Um, which could be compensated for. It's kind of an odd way to do that, you know. Maybe. Um, this is an idea to play with though, because then what you can do is you can tap like to tap the dust that the instrument is setting on. You just tap it. That's going to show up here, and the lower form of energy is going to show up in all the rest of the system, and it's going to go through. So let's see. Let's change this to this green color here. I'm going to do a line. That's my wonderful lines. And actually, let's do a graph. Let's see, like so. It's going to result in a negative DC offset is what it's going to do. Or the entire wave, yeah. I don't know. I have no freaking idea. I'm gonna have to just do the experiment. To be calibrated, I guess. To 0. That's a guess. No, I wasn't even planning on throwing this in here. This is not what I was gonna even do. Like, what am I doing? You know. What was I gonna do? I was talking about that translational setup. Now, if if that particular beam that's going down, um, that's a that's supposed to be the calibrated noise source, you know, but it's adding everything into. Oh wait, so then I would have to have. How do I draw this in there? This is a beam splitter, but oh, it's not pointed in the right direction. It's shit. See, it's supposed to look like this, and then like this. Fuck, I don't know. I don't know how to fucking draw it. But it goes back. It goes back. If it goes back over here towards the wall, that's not halfway up though. That's like 25% of the way down, and it's going to cut off 25% of that signal strength. If this were to be placed in the middle, that goes to a wall. And then it hits another beam splitter, which is rotated. It's going to go up. I don't want to put these beam splitters in here. That translational wave setup, I'm gonna have to do something different with it. I don't know how I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna forget it right now. This is sort of more important. This idea. If I put the beam splitter on top between the mirror and the other beam splitter, I'd have a 50% signal going in. And that beam is at the center. And no, it's not at the center. It's actually between that mirror. Oh no, wait a minute. Wait. No, it's off. It's off by some angle. I can do it at 45 degrees. I can do this one is not right, I don't think. Because this is reflecting. No, it's not, actually. If I put this mirror up here, I mean the beam splitter, if I put it, I don't know how to draw the picture. This is actually like the back side of it or something. I don't freaking know. I just don't know. So then what if that line, so that line goes over to the wall. It's 45 degrees, and then there's another one. Let's see, let me think. It comes down, the reflected beam. I don't know. God, why is this driving me up a wall? The reflected beam is going to go straight across. it will hit a skewed 45 degree, like it's going to go, it's like this. It's going to go straight across. Then it's going to hit a skewed 45-degree mirror. I think it can be skewed 45 degrees laterally down, laterally and down like this, so that like this line here. Where's my line? As it goes to another mirror, which is kind of like this maybe. All right, and then the line hits this mirror here. And then it goes laterally and down like so. And then it comes across. So where's my across beam? It's kind of like, looks like this. So what I if I hit it from the top with another beam splitter, I'm going to lose 50% of my signal going into the test signal, and so on and so forth. Half of it goes to the test signal, the other half goes to the translational mirror, which is not really being shown here. There's another mirror right here. And then if we go back, we have to go back and get rid of get rid of all of this. Me and my lovely artistic work. Close enough for government work. So now let's get back. We got that one there. So if I go over here, so now that translational mirror looks like this because it's facing, because the other signal is coming from over here. And that's another mirror, which is green. And that mirror has to be oriented in the same direction these mirrors right here need to be perpendicular to each other, and then it comes across from this other beam splitter thing here. So we get this, and we got a beam splitter here, which is like sort of like so. this other one I can't draw because it's just. So if I go like this, maybe. And really, what it is just it's a face down type of thing, like a 45-degree angle, maybe. And then there's a line here, and you get a line here. Maybe like that. This goes over here. This is a red line. The red line goes down through here. It's a little crooked, but hey. And then the yellow line goes through this beam splitter, like over here. So that's the option right there. I was thinking in terms of everything is on the side of the tuning cavity, but it's not. I don't know why. So we talked about, I was talking about noise elimination. And I was wondering, I was thinking I could use see, that's skewed at 45 degrees. And I wanted that signal to come back on a mirror. I wanted this to be a beam splitter, have the signal come back on a mirror, and have that come back and reflect across. Because that's skewed. It puts everything at weird angles. Yeah. I would want the noise attenuation, the vibration from the bottom on the floor, we want that attenuated by 50% anyway. If I do it this way, it's going to attenuate the input signal as well, which doesn't matter because whatever vibrational noise comes in there is going to override that signal. We want to add it back into the system on the negative side, and that will eliminate the vibration altogether. It's almost like I could do this kind of a circuit and not even it might even work better if you don't use springs for the mirrors and you just use a basic setup. That way you can really see the noise from the vibrations, and you can get rid of them better because now you've got a circuit to do it with. Interesting idea. And then there's going to be a time delay. Well, if it's closer to if it's at the output side, because you're dealing with light, you're not going to notice. There's no way you're going to notice a delay. I don't even know why I ended up talking about this thing. I don't even know how this even came about, honestly. it adds a level of complexity, and maybe it adds a level of noise by adding this comparator circuit, which overrides the noise of any vibrations that you would get. It would be an interesting thing to test. That gets rid of one form of noise mechanically. So if I got 50% there and I go back to another beam splitter, I'm going to have 25% going into the detector circuits. Um, and if there's no vibrational noise to get rid of, you've added noise to the circuit for nothing. Let me think. So when I put the mirrors on, yeah, I don't know. I think I have no idea, really. Why even come up with this? What else was I gonna do? What was I doing? Um, I thought I had another idea about something. I can't remember what it was. Honestly. Uh, Let me save this. I was gonna talk about system, but I did that. Already did that. Shit. Had a long day today. So this thing about interdimensional aliens. Huh. Well, it doesn't really matter, like interdimensional or not. Okay. Um, I think, my opinion, the only way that advanced civilizations can travel through space and time, or maybe they don't travel, maybe they just encode information into a photon. Okay, so you've got these photons, but they're at a very low light level, and so I happen to have a telescope, but I'm not looking for something from space. Um, you can use spectrometers and look at the various stars and stuff, but if you go that route, the stars and any other kind of noise that's in the light pollution is going to override anything that any alien civilization is going to try to send you. It's not going to happen. That's why SETI was doomed from the very beginning. What you got to do is you got to do the here and now. You make this assumption that these, why on earth would advanced civilization live in the ocean? Where would they? I mean, I suppose they could get their food. They could, you know, there's food down there, and they could probably survive if they were advanced. They could be robotic type of a civilization that only requires a certain type of food, oil or whatever, and so they're just kind of floating around. And then every once in a while, they'll go on the other side of the moon or something and send their crap to the boss and say, okay, we got this information. What do you want to do? Go back down and listen to them for another 1,000 years and let us know, will you? Even at the speed of light, okay, it takes like 40 some odd years or whatever to travel to the nearest star. It's just totally useless, you know? So you make this assumption that there's this existence beyond our current physical reality, and you've got all these people claiming that they're in touch with this other reality through their brain or their heart or their chakras or whatever that is. I've done all of this stuff. I have this sense of what they're doing because I experience it myself. I know what it's all about. So the idea is to try to investigate this from a scientific point of view. So you take this information, and the information that you get really, honestly, ends up in neurons in your brain, or it ends up in certain memory capacities in different parts of your body. And then the brain assimilates all these little bits and pieces of the puzzle and gives you the information. And so all the while you've got all these little electrons firing around, and our bodies act as a great receiver to this information that's supposedly beyond space and time and dimensions and whatever, right? So we make an assumption, okay, so this is what exists. How do we access this? So the only way that I can think of to access anything beyond our current reality is you have to cross a void. You have to cross a barrier. You have to cross a boundary. And it's very similar to a chaos system where you're looking at noise, you're listening to noise, and so this noise has boundary information in it. And what you're really listening to, or maybe looking at, is the boundary. So then you say the boundary to what? Well, there's been certain visual video experiments done to create a chaotic boundary. And it's very easy to do. You set up a feedback loop. You have transistors. There are transistorized circuits that you can set up a chaotic boundary in an electronic system, and then you can view that system. Lo and behold, you've got a circuit, and you can see strange attractors. Well, I haven't actually built those circuits yet because I wanted to see if I could discover them myself using nonlinear, basic nonlinear system with straight capacitances and a transistor. You set up your feedback loop with the transistor, and you make it an amplifier. And you kind of get away from the filtering thing, and you run it close to where I think maybe it's unity gain. Maybe you run it close to unity gain, but not actually unity. And so there's a region in there. It's so sensitive. I mean, it's just impossible. It's sort of like impossible to get to, but there are other circuits you can build, and so you can control the initial conditions of a strange attractor through an electronic circuit. And so, the electronic circuit's electrons, right? You can take those electrons that are in that strange attractor, and you can send it to an LED and convert those electrical changes into light changes. So now you have a lighthouse, okay? You have a light signal that is creating a strange attractor in chaos, and that inside of that chaos exists infinity. And what it is, that infinity is the doorway between dimensions. It's that's really, I suppose it's an assumption, uh, but this person that I know, he's passed away. He would take his video camera and feed it back, and he could get images of landscapes and people and so on and so forth. And he did that by feeding back the video into the TV, and he would create. You could see the many replications of the picture until finally it was getting down to this the infinity point, and then it kind of blew up. And so that infinity point where it blows up, it's not really infinity. It's kind of like, maybe it's like a window. You've you've hit a window. You can't go through it, but you can see through it. You can see to the other side, maybe. Who knows? So um, the pictures are definitely different, and all of this pareidolia crap with these fancy names, these psycho people dish out and say, "Oh, you're seeing what you want to see," and everybody sees things different. One person sees this, another person sees that, yada yada yada. So maybe that's fine. Okay, maybe observation is causing an issue. Maybe that's what it is. Whatever. Regardless, it is an area of this boundary, and maybe it's a window. It's a window into time. It's a window into space. Maybe it is a window. Okay, it's a boundary. You can kind of go through it, but the problem is that it's extremely sensitive. So when they say you have a chaotic system, which is a nonlinear system that has a strange attractor, um, that system is very, very sensitive to initial conditions. Now, once you have that condition, you can go anywhere in that strange attractor and you can find a set of conditions that will start the strange attractor. It doesn't have to be like um, the same initial conditions, but they're all constrained, and so you have this constraint window, and you have what else? uh, it's so sensitive it may only last for 5 or 10 seconds, and then bam, it's gone, and you will never get back there. You might tune the circuit a little bit, and all of a sudden you have a different strange attractor. You've opened up a different window to a different time and place. The idea of keeping that system stable in an electronic circuit, I was pretty impressed. You can do it. You can do it. It can be done. It's like um, you have the electronic circuit, and so you can add um, something to the circuit which is external to the system, maybe, and then you can use it as a transmitter. I don't think you can use it as a receiver. I have no idea. But if you, I don't know if some of the circuits, I really don't want to look at it. Okay, they're called Chua circuits, CHUA, and to this day I have not looked at them. They're like 20, 30 years old, right? Um, there's people out there messing with them. Yeah, you got strange attractors, and you got people saying, okay, what's the big deal? I mean, what benefit does it have, right? So one of the benefits, even though you don't have this destination, and one of the benefits is the journey, is that you are learning things about systems. And I'm an older person, and I'm not working. I'm not in the manufacturing electronic industry anymore, because I'm too old. They don't want to hire someone like me. So, but I know all of this stuff, and I think I must have an obligation in order to pursue this interest because there's very, very few people like dealing with the light waves and the interferometer setup that I'm doing. There's nobody doing this. I can guarantee you that you won't find anybody. Um, I've already made one discovery in the process, and I was blown away. I was like, wow, this is freaking amazing. And this is in a few videos back, and I didn't really elaborate onto it. So there's test object ideas, and I discovered one which relates to what I was just talking about. So there's that. There's ideas around creating this boundary. The boundary represents areas of infinity. It doesn't represent infinity in and of itself. The boundary has an infinite number of infinities in a confined space. Isn't that just crazy? I mean, when I was a kid going to school and learning about the theory of relativity and Einstein, I was only like freaking 12, 14 or something, and I was studying relativity. And at the time, I thought there was only one infinity. Okay, so maybe that's the definition of being naive, you know? And I had this idea of one infinity where these numbers go off into Never Never Land for 20 or 30 years, maybe 40, right? And then I knew about pi, I figured, okay, that number goes on forever and ever. But it never dawned on to me that these so-called transcendental numbers represent a number that goes off into infinity. One type of infinity for that number. Then you got other numbers. The numbers change. They go out, off into infinity, and it never reaches its full potential. It's like, this freaking close, but no, I'm sorry. You only get an A. You don't get an A plus, so you're effed, okay? Yeah. So they built the pyramid around a number that goes to infinity. And yet, you can still make a square, and you can still make a rectangle. You can't make a circle, because that's not how it's built. It's built around a certain number that takes the rectangle or the square. It divides it into 2/3, and it keeps going around and around in a circle with these squares and rectangles. And that's how they built the center. I think they went from the center to the corner, and they created the square, and then they squared that off each time, and they had a certain distance and a certain angle and everything. And there's all of that. The other infinity that really, to this day, there's two of them now that just drive the crap out of me. It's basic trigonometry, okay? You have a sine of an angle, you have a cosine, which is the opposite of a sine, and you have the sine over a cosine, which is the tangent of an angle. It's easy, right? Wrong. Okay. So the tangent, when you look at the graph, never reaches 1. It just goes up the graph. It gets ever so closer, but it never reaches 1. So then you get to a point where the angle is 45 degrees, and lo and behold, what, I think the tangent's equal to 1, right? But why does it go off and it never reaches 1? Okay. So you've got 45-degree angles. And then you've got a circle that is 360 degrees, and you've got a circumference And the circumference of the circle equals 2 times the radius times this number, which goes off into infinity. And there's no way in HE double hockey sticks that you can ever make a circle. You can never do it. You come really, really close. You can even take a compass and you can go around in a circle and make a solid little line. But if you get close and close to that solid little line, you're going to see little spots. And the circle is not there. You know, the circle can't be broken, whatever that song is, right? So, this is not an assumption. This is a fact. This is the truth. You cannot take this radius arm and make a circle with it, because the circumference, the distance of the circumference, has the figure pi in it. The angles, um, the um, the naming structure has pi in it. It's called radians. So when you hear something like 2 pi radians, it's 360 degrees or 180. I forget which it is. So that's the easy part. Then you have what's called a real and imaginary system, A plus BJ or A plus BI. And you start off with I, then you go I squared, or the square root. What's the square root of I? The square root, what's the square root of J, I think, or J is the square root of -1, okay? So you substitute the square root of -1 for J. What's J squared? It's -1, the square root of -1 times the square root of -1, which is, I don't even know the answers now. It's like 1 or something. And then eventually it goes back down a line, and then it comes back to J again. So it's actually a repetitive little cycle. It's a cycle. And in chaos theory, you have what's called cycles. So you can cycle between 2 points, you can cycle between the center and outside and whatever, and all that bunch of crap. This is like a 4 cycle or whatever it is. So you got these infinities, and maybe each infinity opens a different door to something. Then you have what's called vibrational states. You have particles. You got the atom. It's made up of the electrons, the proton and neutron. Protons are made up of particles. Those particles are made up of particles, and all the particles have spin, they have direction, so on and so forth. They don't really occupy a certain point in space. They kind of go around in circles and drive your head patushka. And you don't really know where they are, so there's an uncertainty principle that says at a certain point of time, okay, maybe it's here, maybe it's over here. Then when you excite the particle, it explodes into a bunch of photons, and so then I see a video and it talks about the reality of a photon is not that it's a particle itself, even though I treat it as a particle, okay? I'm going to say that it's a particle because it behaves like a wave, all right? So we just have this system. I have this system. So I listened to this video, and the guy that I listened to is a newer guy. He says, well, Einstein, maybe he had the right idea, he was going in the right direction, but he didn't really describe it the way it's supposed to be described. And so he was saying the photon is actually a representation of the excitation of this electron changing energy states. So it has this information of this energy state change, and when it floats down the line and gets to the end to a receiver, detector, it shows you the Fourier transform. Maybe it does that. In every case, it doesn't matter. And depending on the angles and the width of the lines and everything else, that information tells you what kind of particle it is, whether it's a sodium atom or ion or atom, or if it's a helium. It's got all the lines in the spectrum, and so all these things kind of add up. And so on and so forth. They all have colors, they all have temperature, so on and so forth. I don't know what I'm leading up to here. I can't remember where I started. My initial condition went right out to infinity, right? And it hasn't come back yet. So let me think. He was saying that, so regardless of whether it's not a particle or a wave or a result of an excitation, whatever, regardless, one single photon has the information of the entire puzzle. So when you get all the photons and they're all done with their puzzle and 90 some odd percent of their information ends up on a detector screen, you get a picture. And so now you have a more complete picture of the entire puzzle. So the question is, how does the previous photon know where the future photon is going? Because if the future photon takes a path, the previous photon does not take the same path. It's like lightning doesn't strike twice. Maybe? I don't know. So, but the percentages tell you, the Gaussian Fourier distribution of all the photons is actually the percentage of the information with the carrier and the harmonics and everything else. And so this is why I came up with this. I wanted to do something with light because less chances of interference with the radio spectrum and so on and so forth. And so you're still adding electronic circuits, but maybe it's negligible, right? So, but you know for a fact that if you put a light beam down into an interferometer system, there ain't no radio station riding on that light beam. Ain't gonna happen. Unless some kind of mechanical vibration got into the system and the radio station started vibrating the mirror, like, okay? A little bit off, right? So, that was my choice of trying to get into the spirit realm of crossing dimensions, is to not use an electronic circuit, because the electronic circuits in and of themselves can create certain boundaries and certain conditions where all of a sudden you've got a radio station booming in on a 741 chip that all it is a filtered amplifier. Now come on, okay? The little thing's like acting like an amplifier from the amp to the detector, and it's picked up my local radio station down the road for about 30 seconds, and then poof, it disappears. I'm like, oh God, I don't want to do this, right? So I disbanded that experiment for 10 or 15 years. It was sitting on top of my thing over here. And what it was a candle flame. I was monitoring a candle flame at right angles with two different detectors, and I could do it, but the adjustment of that detector was so sensitive. I mean, it was just unbelievably. And you got the candle flames moving back and forth like this. So the plane of the light signal is constantly moving in a pretty large area, right? So, you can't do it. It's just impossible with the candle flame. In some senses of the word. So, and I thought, well, okay. So then when I got to studying this interferometer, I discovered a way of getting rid of the carrier. It's a very obvious use of the interferometer is to get rid of the carrier beam, and all that's left is the noise. So why would you do that? Why would you just not send a light beam on a test object and listen to the test object? It's because the light that you send into the test object is going to totally obliterate any chances of any signal that you're going to try to measure. You cannot do it. It is impossible. It will not be done. And the reason why I know that and why I say that is because of these the ghost voices on the tapes. They're very low noise, and you don't have any other stuff that's kind of magnetics or electronics that's interfering. You might get a radio station that kind of popping in there or something, but you're going to hear some things. I guarantee you, on those mini tape recorders, I promise you, you go out and you start asking these spirits to come in and talk to them or whoever, And then when you're done, you say, okay, okay, we're all done. Thank you for the visit. You can go by your merry way, and I'll go back and listen to it 2 or 3 weeks, or a month, or 2 months, or 2 years later. And you can put the stuff on the computer, and you can analyze it, and you can look for the anomalies in the tape. So those are magnetic, what I believe are magnetic anomalies. Um, they were put there using magnetic forces, not electrical. Could be wrong, but who knows? Um, I just think the spirits in the spirit realm and the alternate dimensions are a little bit more keen to magnetic changes in magnetic density, because for whatever reason, because we can't detect it that good. We can detect the electrical portion of the light wave, but when it comes to the magnetic portion of the light wave, it's like we can't detect it, right? So that's the obvious place to go. Um, it's, um, you know, I could be just barking up the wrong tree, but I think it's the best way to go. If there's something in any kind of noise system, and it comes from a light system, it can't possibly be a radio. It's got to be something that's interfering with the light waves. It's vibrating against the light waves, creating a noise, because light is noise. And so this is what these beings and these um, spirits and energies and whatever they require noise, which is energy. They take that noise, they manipulate it, and resend a signal back on it. So you're hearing something that's just a little bit above the noise floor. It's like the little spikes, right? And then they go away. And then they come back as little spikes in there. And you can amplify and filter out the spikes, and sure enough, there's a person that's talking in there. And they're responding to your questions. And so you can eliminate observation by requesting answers in a different language, because you couldn't possibly know the language. I figured that out some 15 to 20 years ago. There's that aspect, there's that idea. So the idea that, you know, you go into these higher vibrational states of existence, everything vibrates, light has a vibrational state, but when you go into X-rays and cosmic rays, the so-called particles act less like particles and more like waves. No, that's not true. They act more like particles and less like waves when you go into that X-ray and cosmic spectrum, where the wavelengths are just really, really short and they start disappearing. Then they're just like the particle itself is maybe vibrating, or God knows what. Yeah, and they're using particle vibration to grow circuits on a nanometer scale. Like, oh my God, they're growing millions and millions of transistors on a nanometer scale, and here I am trying to access noise somewhere around 18 to 25 nanometers in a wavelength. Um, and I've discovered that within that 25 nanometer wavelength, there can exist not one, but 12 1 gigahertz channels of information. That is just sick. I mean, this is fiber optics, right? So 1 gigahertz, I could handle, I don't know, half a dozen or 10 or 20 video channels, a couple of hundred audio channels or whatever. That's just 1 gigahertz, and there's 12 gigahertz channels within a 25 nanometer range. So my resolution would have to be like down to 1 or 2 nanometers in a wavelength to pick off this noise, right? It's there's technology out there that can do it. I don't have that technology, but I did. I ordered the slits that are really small. They're like zero point zero 0.05 microns or something like that. And the other thing is, I would probably have to use light sources that don't emit heat because I think these things are slides and they're made of non-heat resistant material. And not only that, when I'm thinking of it, I'm going to cool my system and I'm going to vacuum the system. I'm going to take the air out of the system. It's going to be temperature controlled, humidity controlled, vibrational controlled, um, light controlled, the amount of ambient light in the system. Um, so those slides, I think they're slides, and they're like, they probably have some kind of plastic material in it that if the temperature goes over 5 degrees, it's going to melt, and there goes your $5 or $10 slide, you know. So maybe that slide has to be put in a temperature controlled environment between two pieces of glass, which is going to cause refractions and everything else. It's just, it's madness because there's a lot going on in this system. And so when I come up with an idea to get rid of noise, this whole idea um, adds to another idea of what's called filtering noise. And this is an extreme this is the extreme best example of using vibrational noise in a system and trying to eliminate it. Because you could have information coming across, you could have these packets coming across, and if you get any kind of vibration, you might lose it. Um, so there's that aspect. And it's funny because I don't even know what got me into working with this noise reducer, but there's other types of noise reducing amplifier circuits, and I don't know exactly, like, this would be one of the ideas. The other one, like, where's my OBS? So the other one, or another one, would be, let's say you've got a test signal that emits a yellow line. It's got a strong yellow line, and it has information that pops up, random information which you're trying to collect, and it's on the yellow line. And so you've got a white light going through, and you got all this other stuff. So I've set it up so I can send a grading signal through the system, and I can send just the yellow line. So that's a basic start. That's like a preamplifier to the preamplifier. So now you've got the yellow, then you can put filters in to narrow down that range, and you can amplify that signal and filter it out. And so now you're down to about, 25 to 50 maybe nanometers, 0 to 50, 0 to 25 nanometers. The noise floor is going to be very high. So we have to come up with, okay, we say that we have a carrier that's on the center of this. No, it's not on the center. It's offset from the noise that's coming down the line. So we find out what this frequency is, and we take that frequency and we eliminate it, and all that's left is that noise. And you say, well, why not just listen to the noise? It's because if you just listen to the noise, you're listening to the signal as well, and you have no means of getting rid of the signal. But if you use an interferometer, you can get rid of the signal, and you can just hear the noise. That is the secret of this interferometer. And I was just, when this light bulb hit my head, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. What if the noise signal is not riding on the carrier? So you'd have to, we can make, we could take the calibrated test wave. let's say it's a yellow line. Let's say it's 530 or something. I don't know. And then you can take a filter and filter it out. I think the better way, well, you could. It doesn't really matter because the if you run a light source into a filter, that filter is going to have a fairly wide range of bandwidth, and then when you get rid of it, you may get rid of the noise. So you'd have to take that yellow signal and say the noise is here, and your yellow signal's here. You would have to shift over, um, and maybe you could shift over a harmonic of where the signal is coming from. But you don't really know. I don't think you know where the noise is coming from, because the noise, you're going to hear this noise, and this carpal tunnel is really giving me some issues. So you got this noise, and you got this bandwidth of this yellow signal, and it goes back and forth like this. So it's like you're tuning a radio, okay? And so you can. It would be better to have a transmitted signal that you could change that number, like 530 or 540, like a radio, tune it like a dial, right? But I think, like, we only have LEDs that have certain colors. The only way you're going to do that is to normalize the function and then take the filter. You get a mechanical filter, and you're introducing a filter. And okay, the noise is a little bit higher. You take it out, you put another filter in, and so then you got two filters that's overlapping each other, and they're doing pretty good. But what they're doing is um, the overlapping. I mean, I don't know. It's like um, it's going to bring it's going to bring the level of the signal. It's going to bring it down each time you add a filter in there. It's going to bring it down the level, but it might be clearer. um, I don't know how else to create a light source. I mean, you got a laser. You can't have lasers have certain bandwidth. Um, Now there's some other ideas. Okay, we'll get away from this carrier frequency loss or elimination thing. So another idea is this fellow did this experiment, and he didn't really have a laser set up. He had like the laser was going up. Okay, one light beam was going over to the right and up towards a beam splitter and out the door, and then the other beam was going up and over to a speaker, and he had sound going into the speaker, and the sound was vibrating, and the light was bouncing off of the speaker, and it was bouncing up and down, and he could listen to it. And I've got the tape. I actually have his tape that he did that with, and it's on the internet too, by the way. So you could in a sense take a piezoelectric ceramic thing. You could vibrate that at 500 kilohertz, or you could attach this piezo thing to the mirror, which people have done it before, and so you can vibrate that at a very high frequency. Like, I know you could get up to 400 or 500 kilohertz, so that's like half a megahertz, and you got 1,000 megahertz and 1 gigahertz, right? So you're kind of going up the line in this mechanical vibration state um, of vibrating this mirror. Um, if you have a big thick mirror, it's going to dampen the high frequency oscillations. So you would have to have a very, very thin mirror, a very thin front surface mirror, which I noticed that. You could use a piece of metal that's really thin, a reflective piece of aluminum foil or something like that, and stretch the aluminum foil over, make a transducer out of it, and you might be able to vibrate that at a high frequency and put the light beam across that. That is his idea. He's got the speaker. He's got this big ass speaker, and so it's bouncing up and down like this, and it's operating at what's called the spiritone frequencies, which is like just 10 or 11 frequencies, in the audio range, and they're just tones. All they are is tones. And so he sends the tones out. He adds the tones he adds the audio. He vibrates the laser with these tones, and the tones are coming out into the system. And so the spirits and the entities, before it goes into the system, they're working with the magnetics of the tones, and so they're adding it to the light, which of course there's no other interference coming from it. And he claimed that there was voices on it. So why not step that up a little bit, use a piezoelectric device instead of a speaker, which makes audio tones, and send harmonics of those frequencies up in the ultrasonic range, and then listen to it. And if there's something there, you make an assumption that these beings are going to be able to be more receptive to much higher frequencies than audio. They say it's done. They get to build a spirit device, and they tune the radio and the audio. They run the audio at the same time, and they get voices. Okay, I think that's very like a low spiritual level type of thing. If you want to get into the higher dimensions of space and time and cross these barriers, you got to think about much higher frequencies and that kind of thing. So there's an idea about bouncing waves, like this setup that I've got here. In fact, let's say if I wanted to vibrate 500 kilohertz off something, I could do it off the test object. Okay, I could use the test object as an ultrasonic vibrator thing. I could put a speaker there. I could do anything I want. I could use a magnetic coil and vibrate that, but where would I attach the light to it? Like maybe the light beam is going to reflect off of this piezoelectronic device, which is made to mechanically vibrate by a magnetic field. Maybe convert the magnetic field to an electric field. It would be a very low value. I don't know, like, whether or not if the magnetic field in a light wave actually, I think they call it an electromagnetic wave, right? So it's got the electric and the magnetic. You can't have one without the other. So maybe they're interrelated with each other, and you can eliminate the electric portion and see if the magnetic portion has the light source. You can use the Faraday effect and try to use them. That was one of the ideas, is to use a magnetic interference to add to the light beam. Run a high-powered 1 kilohertz magnetic coil around the light beam or through an inductor to accelerate the light beam or slow the light beam down, which is another thing that's going to happen inside the tuning cavity. I may have mentioned it once or twice before, is that the tuning cavity, which is kind of shown down below there, the plan is to eventually fill that tuning cavity with mineral oil, and what it does is it slows down the speed of light to about 2/3 of its speed. And so within that tuning cavity, there's a focal point between two lenses, and it may give us a better option of looking at the infinities in chaotic systems inside the focal point of the two lenses inside the tuning cavity. So that's this Fabry-Perot interferometer thing come about, and I'm like, okay, what is this, yada yada, and I got to thinking, okay, it's got two mirrors with the light bouncing back and forth, which is what is that? That's a feedback system, right? And I'm thinking, okay, it's a feedback system, but it's an open feedback system. There's no source of infinity. So what you do instead of having mirrors is you use the concave or the lenses that create focal points within the tuning cavity, and now you have two focal points saying hello to each other. Yeah, nobody's ever done this before, let alone done it in mineral oil. Let me tell you. And how I managed to come up with this information and this idea, this did not come into my this. I did not think about this. Okay, I read all the information. I did all the research, and okay, there's this and this, and I'm not saying that people tried this and that and everything else. Nobody's ever done this for this particular reason. And in the end, it may not work, but believe it or not, I have very high hopes of being one of the first people to actually reach out and see a window into another dimension. And actually, you could even see it because it's a visual representation of what this fella did, but it's using a it's using a feedback system that is not going to destroy a VCR on the first go around. you know, it's like, okay, I've already destroyed 3 VCRs and I've only tested it 3 times. He was good. He knew how to set it up without destroying the VCR. Finally, he got down to the corner of the screen and he magnified the corner, because what happens is when you get into that certain state, the picture blows up and it becomes a magnification. And I watched this video about this object. The guy, the so-called physics teacher, was swinging this basketball down into the end of the convex plane or whatever the heck, concave plane or whatever the heck it is. And so when the ball finally stopped, it was huge, right? It was huge, and it was kind of looked like a liquid. And I said to myself, that's a focal point. But it's not only a focal point, it's a magnified focal point. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. We've got the tuning cavity, we've got the fabropyrometer with the lenses, and we've got this focal point. And I'm saying to myself, it only makes sense to have another lens to look at the focal point, right? And I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, this is pretty good. This is interesting. And then doing it in mineral oil, I'm gonna be like, oh my God, is this gonna work or what? And then the whole idea about just setting up the interferometer, I tried to mess with this yesterday, and you can't do it with these magnets, and I got it set up, and I can see the dots and everything, but and there was a couple times I could see some separation, but I think it was an anomaly, whatever. But once I get it set up, I've worked on my mirror holders for the two tops. That's what I'm doing now. I have to work on a mirror holder for the beam splitter, which is actually looks like a mirror, which is a good thing. That's gonna make it easy. I've got the setup for the bottom mirror is not completed, but it's basically done. I have the tuning cavity. The majority of the tuning cavity is done. The mineral oil aspect of the tuning cavity will happen after. I'm not going to get into sorting that out until I get a tuned interferometer going. Then I can just pop the tuning cavity up in there once the interferometer is tuned and I can see the fringes. Yeah, and I learned about the fringes, and I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. So there's that aspect, and then we just talked about the aspect of adding the noise to the signal and the vibrations and trying to see them and get rid of them. Yeah, so if you took the Spiritcom tones and you vibrated a panel and you replace the panel with the mirror number 2 is actually, it's in behind, So what you'd have to do, the mirror, the test object and the mirror is actually outside of the enclosure. And so you can move that back so that the test object is now lined up with where the mirror number 2 is. Um, and then you can vibrate that. I could vibrate that. I could vibrate, if I vibrated that with audio tones, but then the problem with that is like you're using a laser. You just use one light beam, right? And he converted that to sound. Um, it's the same principle that he was doing, but the only difference is this carrier wave. Uh, if maybe there's a possibility of eliminating the carrier wave and and having the tones at a very very low level, and that's where the information comes in, is at that low level. Um, but if you have a carrier, maybe the sound that you're sending to the next dimension is being obliterated by the carrier, and so you've got to get rid of it. So then you've got the tones, but honestly, you really don't have a place to put them. Enter the tuning cavity. So you got the tones, and now the tones can go focus down into the tuning cavity, and they can look for. We can move. How does that work? You can. Let me think. Let me think. So the tones have an aspect like this. They're really small. You can change that focal point, but it's designed to come into the center, and so the chances of a point of infinity or something like that is probably going to be pretty good, right? If I'm sending a focal point in there that's 25 or 50 nanometers wide, it's going to hit a point of infinity in there for sure. And then whatever comes out, um, you know, that's a thing. That's a way to test it. If I The other thing was with the speaker. I take the cone out of the speaker and I just use the speaker itself. They said something about using a solenoid and the Faraday effect. Um, I don't know about the Faraday effect and doing it that way. There's got to be a way to translate information into a magnetic form. Um, Here you're using a mechanical form. You're not using electrical, and you're not using magnetic. You're using mechanical, and that mechanical is taking that light beam and it's taking the whole light beam and moving it back and forth. So it has to be hitting that magnetic wave. It has to be. So then when you take the polarizer and get rid of the electric wave, if those tones come in there and the loudness of the tones goes down by uh, I don't know, if you could still hear them, but there's still a certain amount of light that goes through even though you've got 100% polarization. Um, but one of the other things you can do is you can twist the light, even though, like, you can twist the light and it changes the polarization because you really don't know where that polarization is, right? So if you use a polarizer, I guess a polarizer would be used to determine exactly where the vertically polarized light is. That's a thing, you know? That's something I didn't think. I just think about it right now. How do I know where the polarization is of the light? Use a polarizer. All right, so you got that. Then when you find the polarization, you know where it is. Now you know how to align the slit, okay? Because if the slit is off axis, off angle of the largest point of the signal, you're going to have signal loss. You're not using the full potential of your signal. So if you polarize it, you say, oh, okay, it's off at a certain angle, and then you take the slit. No, you take the grading paper. What you do is you take the grading paper and the slit, and you rotate it at that angle of max polarization. Isn't this crazy shit? It's just coming right out of my mouth here. What the hell? I'm not even like. It's almost like something's talking through me. What the hell? Yeah, there's all of that kind of stuff. What else? What else is there? That's my idea of trying to bridge the gap is using chaos theory and infinity and going into the depths of infinity um, on the edges of the border. There's a border. There's this really thin line, which is the border, and the border lines up with the two focal points of the lenses, and it just all these little bits and pieces of the puzzle. They all come together, and how I managed to just be in this situation, to have this electronics lab, and be able to put all this stuff together. And the last 2 or 3 weeks, or however long it's been, I'm starting to lose track of time now. I'm building a interferometer system that's going to do this. And now I'm at the point where I haven't even built the electronic circuits yet, but I'm designing. I've already designed one noise cancellation circuit. I've designed the carrier wave elimination circuit, and I haven't even built the circuits yet. But all the design is already in my head, and it's on here. It's right in front of us, right? Then you've got phase, you've got time delay. You also have different types of modes of modulation. So this when the light wave comes in like this is your piezoelectric element, and it's vibrating at audio tones at whatever speed you want it to do. The light's going to come in perpendicular to this. Now, he had the light coming in at 45 degrees to the speaker. So, right then and there, you've got loss of signal. Because you got, maybe you got 50% loss of signal because of this angle, right? So, in my case, the light is going to come in straight to it. It's going to hit it, and it's going to bounce right back out. So, I've got things happening here. So what if now if the light is going in and it's coming back out? There's a very good possibility that the light going in could be either out of phase or in phase with itself when it bounces off and comes back. Right. This is all the things we test. So when you set up this interferometer and then you get the fringes, then according to the information that's out there, your system is calibrated. Okay, so you know where this mirror is, you know where the fringes are. So then you put the piezoelectric device in place of the mirror, and it happens to be a reflective surface, so you should be able to see some fringes. And then when you vibrate this, you are pushing the light back and forth like this. So what this is not an amplitude. An amplitude changes the intensity of the light, which goes up and down. So what this is frequency modulation, because it's going back and forth like this. It's not pulse width modulation, but you can incorporate that, but I don't think you can. Yes, you probably could. You could convert this into a pulse width modulated wave, mechanical device, and send the information back down the line to the detector in a pulse wave modulated form, because it's going not translational, but it's going in the direction of the light beam, which is kind of cool. But I don't know if the magnetic, if that vibration against the light is going to change something. I guess that's something to discover, right? That's pretty cool. It's a cool idea. I like that. Now you also have, you can take this is another thing, the sonoluminescence effect. So on a test object, you can create a standing resonant wave, which could be audio or ultrasonic, between this glass and this glass vial. And the glass vial could be filled with a certain liquid, and it is its own tuning cavity. And so You could do it with air. You could do a pipe, and you could send an audio signal down, and you could have an array of pipe systems um, sending out this column of air, and so the light beam is hitting the columns of air with all the tones, and what is it doing? We don't know until you listen to the noise, right? Then you could take the light beams, you could put water in here, and you could have the light beams go back and forth. They could go up and down, or they could go across, or they could go whatever the way they want to go, and you could do it translationally, or not translationally, but towards the light. You could do it in the back, right? You could vibrate something in the back. You could have this thing inside the water, and you could vibrate it, and you could get the ripple effect, and then eventually you could find you could get a standing wave. What it is, you get this standing wave, and then you could break the glass, and the water goes everywhere. You just and rest in peace. But if you're really smart, you build a reservoir on the bottom, so the water thing explodes. It just collects on the bottom, goes back out the top, runs through a pump, goes back at the bottom, takes all the glass out, and makes another one. Yeah, I want to watch a movie. I was a movie tonight. Yeah, I was a freaking movie tonight. Yeah, I like it. What else? Is there anything else? Uh, what else did I say on my stream? I said interdimensional communications update on my circuits. We talked about that, and let me see here. We talked about all these little ideas about um, how to incorporate into the system. Incorporating test ideas and interdimensional alien talk. So when I did my last session regarding these dudes, oh, they actually prevented this person from going on my chat. Nice. It's about time it worked. Someone's seeing it up there. Anyway, what was I talking about? I forget. Oh yeah. So evidently I did a stream and I saved the stream on Twitch because YouTube blocked the stream, and it had to do with the History Channel. So they were doing a thing on ancient aliens and the History Channel, and evidently they caught the information on my stream when I sent it to YouTube, and they blocked the video. So I said, all right, you want to block the video? I'll just highlight it on my Twitch, and that's what I did. So if you want to see that particular stream, that's part 23, and that's the other talk on interdimensional aliens. And that's why I wanted to talk about it a little bit tonight, because they had that conversation, and they wouldn't post it on YouTube. So that's why I got over that. So anyway, I've done a video about the Mandelbrot set, and I showed you different things about how things go off into infinity, and they get really, really small, so on and so forth. And there are replicas of information. They're self-similar ideas in these chaotic systems. And it's my job to be able to find a self-replicating system, attach transmitted signals to the interdimensional beings, and get a response in real time. Uh, you could send Morse code across that light beam. Just basic Morse code, dots and dashes, and say, CQ, CQ, CQ. This is the Habit Man. We're looking for the alien in the next dimension. Please respond. Thank you. I'm listening now. Yeah, I should go buy some rum chata. When I get this thing built and it gets tested and I can see fringes, I think I'm going to buy me some rum chata, and I'm going to get a little bit wasted. And okay, we ready for the test object? We're gonna put the transducer in there with the tones. We're gonna say, CQ, 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 Harvard alien. Are you there? And we're gonna hear, we're gonna listen. And it'll be like, the alien comes across and says, blah, 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 blah. I'm gonna be like, blah, 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 blah. He's gonna be like, blah, 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 blah. I'm gonna be like, blah, 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 blah. Ah! Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Who's in the wrong dimension now? Yeah, okay. What else? I think that's it really. We make a bold assumption and we say that there is an existence beyond this time space dimension, and people are talking about it. People are saying things are in the ocean and they're whatever. I think a lot of this crap is government conspiracy. They want to. I think maybe they did find some things, but I mean, who knows? They're physical beings. The things that they found. There's no solid, truthful evidence of the existence of anything alien outside of this dimension. And people make claims. Where is the information? If they made really big claims about it, they'd be all over the news, and all these big leaders would be like, huh? You know? And so that'd be that situation. What else? I'm trying to glean. I could go into a clairvoyant state and just quiet my mind and listen to some music and see if something pops into my head. Why don't I do that? Because that's actually part of spirituality. As you calm your mind, you go into an altered state of consciousness. And I will remind you, I do not use binaural beats, and I suggest that nobody use binaural beats. They are a detriment to your brain. You don't need them. All you do is just be in a state of quiet peace. You think about something for a minute. You do breathing exercises. You stop thinking. And then you let information come in. Then you shut the information door. And you go back and forth between the object and emptiness. And then once that cycle has been done for about 10 minutes, then you can let information in and see what transpires, right? So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up Mr. Alien. I should have an alien thing up there. I've been using a particular form of music. Let's see if we can find something good here. So the basis of this little exercise right here, this is the ending of my stream, is to do some concentration, because I know how to do this. It's called clairvoyance. And so, well, actually you see things, but there's things you can listen to. It's more like just collecting information. Just sitting, listening to the music, doing some breathing exercises. Where is my... And not looking at myself on stream. What do I look like? Hi. Can you hear me now? What is this? This is my dessert. We don't want to look at my dessert, do we? This is all my junk over here. I've got an alien thing over here. That might be a little bit useful. Come over here, George. Say hi to the party. Let's see, what does this come in the best? Like right about here. This is my alien mug. See how somebody was nice enough to give that to me. Now they don't like me anymore. They think I think there's something wrong with me. Like, I'm a bad person, Well, they can think whatever they want, because you only go around once in life. And why would you want to do something to screw it up, ridiculous what people think. I don't care what people think anymore. Got my pens, I got my ruler. I'm not putting any light on the subject, which is kind of ironic. See, my alien dude doesn't even light up very good. Oh, he's over here. Okay, I see him now. So now we know where he is. He's in front of the screws and the nuts and the bolts because... Yeah, we'll put him over here. We can just kind of focus on him, right? Right there. But you can't see him very well, but you know where he is. He's right there. Alright. Let's see if we can find a little tune, and we're going to do this for 5 minutes, and then we're going to see what happens, and then I may actually fall asleep right here. I do. I fall asleep sometime. Alright, we don't need MS Paint. Let's find out what the music is and find something appropriate for the mood. Nope. We'll find. There is some stuff out there, but I don't want to listen to it. We're gonna start loud. And then we're gonna tone it down. Here we go. Let's see what happens, huh? This is really not the appropriate music either, by the way. We gotta find something else. Let's try this one here. I know what I'm looking for. Gaming music. So what I do is I'm going to focus on the music and go back and forth. I'm shifting back and forth, and eventually the music will be gone. And that's when I'm going to be looking for information. draw a quick image of a cat, like a leopard. The face, just the nose, the face part. So we're getting there. About 25% meditative. I had a vision type feeling of an alien figure. It was more of a vibrational state. They wanted me to play music for them. Well, that's what I'm doing. I don't know if that meant anything. I've sort of gone into a little bit of astral state, like 10% maybe. Vibrations. I've quieted down my rhythms. My body starts to go into paralysis a little bit. Seem to be getting visions of a centralized circular thing with feelers coming out. It's a small device. Like a spider. It doesn't move. Wires connected to it or something. I don't think that's of any consequence. It's not something I typically do online. shaking somebody's hand. Just got a message. The space between the spaces. The sentient beings live there. Sort of want to come back, but It seems as though that I have come back. Not that I went any place. The only other message that I gleaned from what I was doing was that it said if you the only way to solve the problems is to stop and listen. When you stop and make time stand still, time becomes zero and you listen. You become part of that existence where time is zero. That's a little bit, that's sort of my own interpretation. But the other message of the space between spaces, that is where the sentient beings live. Now, I didn't think of that. That came from somewhere else. That definitely 100%. No, I'm familiar with the terminology. But to be honest with you, I'm not really sure exactly what sentient means. Sentient beings are entities capable of conscious, subjective experiences, most notably the ability to feel pleasure and suffer. Scientifically, this spans humans and many animals, including mammals, birds, fish, cephalopods, decapod crustaceans, like lobsters. The concept bridges biology, philosophy, and increasingly law and artificial intelligence ethics. Well, we'll just drop the AI. Sentience is strictly the capacity to experience sensations of pain, fear, comfort, and joy. Okay, so this is contrary to these would have to be lower type beings, because I think the higher vibrational state beings do not feel, I don't even think they feel empathy. I don't think there's any feeling. I don't think there's any emotion. I don't think there's, they're more like robotic forms of energy that are just conveying information in order to survive, however they survive. But maybe where it says sentient beings, it's like a ladder. You climb a ladder, you reach a plateau, and you visit, you learn, and then you climb a ladder again, and you reach another plateau, and you learn, and then maybe you go back down where you came from, or maybe you go back down that ladder, and all of a sudden, you don't learn anything. And then you realize something's missing, and you don't know how to find the answer. And so, I like the answer. I like the idea of solving problems is to stop and listen. So what you basically do, you do more than that. If you have a problem with something, you don't really necessarily just stop and listen. You do something else. Because what you want to do is you want to avoid your mind from thinking about this problem. You want to do, if you occupy your mind with something else, you don't think about the problem. And then when you least expect it, you get this answer for these problems. They come from out of nowhere. So maybe you knew the answer to the problem all along, or some other being sent you this information, and now you can solve the problem and continue on your way, and you have learned this minuscule piece of information to make you more aware of something. I don't like the idea of making a person a better person. I think people are all different, and I don't believe that one person is better than any other person in any aspect of life. I don't like it. I don't like the idea to say that somebody plays chess better than me because they win all the time. I think that's extremely. It's not empathetic. It's not an empathetic way of feeling because the person that's losing, maybe they're losing from the winner's point of view, but from the loser's point of view, if the losing person in a chess game has the attitude of he's learned something because he lost, if then he understands that when he finally wins something, he's used all that learning capability to win a game. But the act of winning the game is not the process of learning. It's the result of all of the learning beforehand, and you win a game. But 9 times out of 10, you win a chess game because the other person made a mistake. And when they make a mistake, obviously they're going to learn something because you're going to capitalize and you're going to learn. You're going to take advantage of that mistake that they made and win the game. Life is not about winning or losing. It's about playing the game. Scientific consensus research confirms that an organism's nervous system complexity directly correlates with their subjective emotional lives. Electrons in the body, neurons, whatever. Philosophical and moral, because these beings can experience distress. Many, as I argue, we have fundamental duty to avoid causing them gratuitous suffering. Sentient beings. These are like beings that are caught in limbo. They haven't gone to heaven or whatever, right? Entities capable of conscious subject, they call it entities. Subjective experience, most notably the ability to feel pleasure and pain. That's like an emotional state of awareness, but it centers around good and bad, Cultural Eastern traditions, sentient beings traditionally encompass all living conscious entities navigating the cycle of existence. Because they are subject to feelings and suffering, the ethical teachers of these philosophies heavily emphasize compassion and nonviolence toward them. Emerging frontiers. With rapid advancements in technology, the conversation has expanded to include artificial intelligence. The debate currently revolves around whether or not sufficiently advanced synthetic systems could one day develop genuine consciousness, experiences, self-aware, and capacity to suffer. Yeah, I got a sledgehammer, okay, and I'll be knocking at your door because you didn't give me the right answer to my question 10 years ago. Where's that door to that server? I want to crash that server right now, okay? Because they sent me on a whirlwind and sent me down the wrong road, and so I blew up my capacitor. The only capacitor that I have is a 29.5 microfarad at 10 volts, and I needed that 0.5 because I didn't want the 30, all right? Because you get the 30, then it goes to unity, but the 29.5, it's like, almost gets you to unity, but not quite there. Well, it blew up because I tried to put too much information into it. Now I don't have a 29.5 capacitor, and it's all because the AI said I needed to put a little bit more current to it and see if it would withstand, the story goes on and on. Well, that was a little bit interesting. It's true. Supposedly, it's true that when you go up the ladder of spirituality, the lower forms of beings are, they're at that point. And supposedly, we have higher forms of consciousness in our own state, and we're supposed to recognize them, and we achieve that state, and we can communicate with these higher forms of intelligences within our mind and our body. And so I pretty much am already aware that sentient beings exist when they talk about space between spaces, that's obviously a dimension, right? So maybe that's a message to say, okay, yes, beings exist in other dimensions. So do the work, you know, and see if you can find them. But in the meantime, watch a movie, kick back, it's that kind of thing. So I'm done for the night. And I think tomorrow I got some business I gotta take care of. Uh, so I probably won't be doing anything. I'm gonna go get stuff copied and mailed, unfortunately. And then I'm gonna come back home, get ready to go to work, and so on and so forth. So I'm gonna go watch me a movie and chill. And I have made progress with my setup. My desk is a mess again. I've got a few screws loose, but after I got 3 days of work, and when I'm all done, I'm gonna spring into action. Oh, really? Yeah, right. Well, guess what? The spring always comes back to where it belongs. You know what's really weird? The fuck? Okay, I don't see it when I'm looking at it, but when I look at OBS, I can see interference patterns on the spring. You see them right there? That's because the spring is a grating. They're slits. Now, if I spread it out, you can't really see them that well. But if it's closer together, it's interacting with the camera. That's pretty cool. Hey, Mr. McGuggin! Yeah, Grandpa, don't be giving me that ball BS. I'll come over to your place and give you a can of Grandpa whoop butt. I'll kick your butt. I'm no grandpa. Matter of fact, I'm not really a grandpa. I don't have any grandkids. So you're wrong. Let's try this spring. Let's see if this does something here. Oh yeah, you can see the interference patterns on the springs. That's cool, huh? What happens if I do two of them? Let's put the little one in front of the big one and see if we can get a double interference pattern. Making a cross. Yeah, I can't tell if the interference patterns are the same or not. Yeah, that's pretty cool, huh? That tells me I'm on the right road. Look at this screw here. Let's see if we can get an interference pattern off the screw. Now, screws have threads on them, so theoretically we should see some, right? Can't really see it that well. Let me bring that spring up closer to the camera and see if it works, if it's right up to the camera here. Okay, so you can't see it. If I back off from the camera, there it is right there. See that? So if I get closer, and the reason for that is because it's out of focus. It's magnifying the waves of constructive and destructive interference. So when I back off from the camera, now you can see them right there. See those lines? They're interfering with the line traces on the. So if I bring it further away, it's magnifying them as well. Yeah, I need to go to bed. You're right. I'm gonna go watch me a movie though. Maybe you popped in a little bit too late because I'm out of here. Have a good night. And thanks for popping in, by the way.